All right, folks, after 28 years representing people charged with driving while intoxicated, I came up with a few basic rules that will help you avoid being convicted if you're ever stopped and arrested for driving while intoxicated. Hello, folks. I'm Andrew Williams, and this is another edition of the Fedora Lawyer. This is your channel for expert legal advice. I'm board certified in criminal law, and I've been defending people charged with DWI, driving while intoxicated, for over 28 years. The first thing you need to know is that to convict you of driving while intoxicated, they need evidence, and by they, I mean the police and the prosecutors. They need evidence to convict you, and what you may not know is that the evidence they need to convict you of driving while intoxicated comes directly from you. And the evidence comes in three forms: the standardized field sobriety test, breathalyzer test, and the blood alcohol test. And of course, they need your cooperation for all of these tests, because without the results of these tests, they don't have any evidence to convict you with. So if you cooperate and you do as the officers ask, they'll be gathering up a whole bunch of evidence against you. But if you don't cooperate, then they don't have any evidence from you. No field sobriety test, no breathalyzer, and maybe no blood test. Now, there are some things you cannot control. For starters, when you get pulled over for suspicion of DWI, the officer will have his dash cam video on in his car. So if you're not driving well, it will be captured on video. Also, the officers nowadays wear body cams with microphones. So when the officer walks up to your car and starts talking to you, it's all going to be captured on video and audio. Now, the cops usually start by asking you if you've been drinking or if you had anything to drink this evening. And they know perfectly well you've had something to drink because they can smell it on your breath. Otherwise, they wouldn't have ever asked you in the first place. Your response should be, "Am I being detained, officer?" If the officer says no, then you should ask, "Well, then I can leave then, right?" If the officer says, "No, you can't leave," that means you're being detained. And now you should say to the officer, "Well, if I'm being detained, I'm not answering any questions without a lawyer present." Most times they continue and they come back with the old thing, "Well, we just want to make sure you're okay to drive." This is just a clever way to get you to do some field sobriety tests on video. And these tests are difficult for anyone who's never done them before, and you're very likely to fail them. Now, the officer, on the other hand, has probably done them several hundred times, and compared to him, he's an expert, and you're going to look terrible. So when he does it and shows you how to do it, and then you try and do it, you're going to look awful. So if you cooperate and do them, or you try to do them, you have just provided the officer with a video full of enough evidence to not only get you arrested, but probably get you convicted of driving while intoxicated. So if you're asked to do field sobriety tests, you should just politely refuse. The officer may say something like, "Well, then I'll have to take you in and arrest you." Don't be fooled by this either. Chances are you're going to get arrested anyway. And if you do those field sobriety tests, you will definitely be arrested. And once you're arrested, they're going to ask you to do a breathalyzer test. Don't do it. You should politely refuse this also. Those breathalyzer tests are notoriously inaccurate, and the machines are very poorly maintained. So don't provide a breath test. Now, if you refuse the breath test, they'll probably ask you to take a blood test. You should refuse this as well. And then they'll tell you, "Well, if you refuse, we're going to get a warrant. We're going to get the blood anyway." Make them get the warrant. Don't let that scare you. Blood test with a warrant, not any different than a blood test without a warrant. And there are two reasons why you want to make them get the warrant. Number one, you might get lucky and they won't find a judge to sign the warrant for you, and then they won't get the blood at all. And number two, could be an hour, 2 hours, maybe even 3 hours before they get the warrant signed and get the blood out of your body, by which time a lot of that alcohol is dissipated out of your system. So if you refuse all of their requests for testing, they don't have any evidence to convict you with. Now, they have you refusing to cooperate, but they don't have anything else. They won't have you on video stumbling around trying to do the field sobriety test. They won't have a breathalyzer test, and they won't have a blood test to show either. But even if they do have the blood test, it's going to be 1, 2, maybe 3 hours after you've been stopped for driving, giving your body time for the alcohol to dissipate out of your system. If they do get the warrant for your blood, this will be the only evidence they have of your intoxication. Remember, they have to prove that you're intoxicated. Don't help them by giving them evidence that they would not be able to get without your cooperation. If you refuse all the tests, they can only say you refuse the test. If you comply with their request, then you will have given them a video, you trying to do the field sobriety test. They'll have a breathalyzer test and maybe a blood test. They'll have everything they need to convict you. You will have gone a long way in convicting yourself of driving while intoxicated. So again, the bottom line is, say as little as possible. Be polite, always be polite, and refuse the test. Politely refuse the test. I'm sorry, officer, I don't want to do any of those tests. The less evidence they have, the easier it is for you to win your case. You might even get it dismissed. All right, well, I hope this was helpful. I hope it gives you some insight on how to handle this. If it was, give us a thumbs up. If you like getting videos on legal topics like this, you can also subscribe to this channel. I'll be making lots more videos like this on all sorts of legal topics in the future. You can also visit my website at andrewwilliamslaw.com. For now, this is the Fedora Lawyer signing off.